Good morning and welcome to another live installment of Force 13's discussion on the tropical weather at this time. And of course we have lots of action going on as we speak. As of midnight UTC, which is the current time, that is 11 AM in Vanuatu, which we're still hearing all the information from Vanuatu, which suffered, as far as we know, severe damage. Some places worse than others. Port Vila, we hear, first of all, there have been a number of deaths there, as we covered in our previous live broadcast, but also elsewhere, further south, it may well have been even worse, but we don't quite know that situation fully just yet, but we'll obviously be finding that out throughout the next hour and discussing the latest information on all the cyclones that are currently active. We're live this evening with Daniel Hudson. Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm okay.
Excellent.
Tired.
Very tired. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we won't keep you too long. We also have Michael and Nick, but at the moment they are both muted. So yeah. So they can't quite introduce themselves just yet, but hopefully we'll get them on the air at some point. I think Nick's banging is a sign of him returning. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I just accidentally hit the end call button instead of the unmute button.
Oh, that was a bit silly. Okay then, well let's take a look at the first thing on my screen right now then. What you're looking at right now is the latest image of Cyclone Pam. Obviously Pam remains a very strong cyclone. It is weakening rather rapidly at this time. The latest information from 9 PM UTC officially was that the storm was 130 miles per hour, category 4 storm on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, but indications are showing now that it has weakened to around 110 miles per hour. That is unofficial information, but it's kind of what we're expecting to see by the 3 AM update. But officially, it's 130 miles per hour and a pressure of around 937 millibars as it heads towards New Zealand. We'll show you some charts on that shortly as well, but first there's a visible image of the storm, but also look at our other storms that are currently active. Cyclone Nathan is still with us at this time, but has been fairly weak in the past 12 to 24 hours. It is still with only 50 mile per hour winds and an air pressure of 989 millibars, still lingering along the coast of Australia as it has been doing for several days now. And we also have Cyclone Tropical Storm Bavi with winds of 50 miles per hour and an air pressure of 989 millibars as far as I know. And that one is headed for Guam. Michael, did you want to say something?
I believe Pablo has joined us.
Indeed. I'm not sure whether he wants to say hello or not, but he's welcome to. But those are the current storms that are active at this time. Warnings in effect, well, none at this moment to speak of in Australia. You can see this was the track map, the latest track map for Cyclone Nathan. Australia Bureau of Meteorology predicting the storm to curve gradually towards the south and quite possibly make another landfall in Australia in the next few days. Some of the models are hinting at that, but we don't know whether or not that will happen just yet. Either way, Nathan may well be a storm that lasts for quite some time, because you can see the 5-day forecast from the Bureau of Meteorology here, or 3-day on that one, but JTWC has a 5-day forecast for Cyclone Nathan, predicting the storm, there it is, to move towards the southeast, peak as a category 1 hurricane, and then turn towards the west and appears to weaken on there. But we saw previous model runs of the GFS showing the storm making a landfall in Australia and re-intensifying in the Gulf of Carpentaria. So you can't rule that out just yet, but that's what we're expecting. The storm certainly moving towards the east now. And actually, as of 9 PM there, it's gone down further to 45 miles per hour, according to the JTWC. Category 1, of course, on the Australian scale. Of course.
Hello.
Yes, Daniel? Hello?
I just want to apologise for my short absence. My iPod ran out of charge.
No one noticed, don't worry.
Good.
I don't know whether you could find us some news on the current situation in Vanuatu by any chance. I know it's still.
I don't know if that's feasible at the moment.
I see.
I'll give it a go.
It is still trickling in, I imagine.
Hmm.
And I know that. I mean, I've not actually looked recently, but Stephen said before the show started that no contact has been made possible. That has been possible with residents living on the outer islands. Communications remaining severely limited, with the sole working telephone tower located in Port Vila. That was according to the Brisbane Times. And indeed, images are starting to appear, we believe, online, and we saw some of them in our earlier broadcast live. I don't know whether we could find those once more and take a look for ourselves about the devastation in some parts of Vanuatu.
I could show the images, but unfortunately, I don't think that's possible on an iPod. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You're stuck on the iPod again, I see.
Yeah.
But if anyone else in the chat currently could possibly do that, then please let me know, because I can't really from my screen alone, because I've got to keep on top of everything else that I'm looking at. Yes.
Just nothing major. Just read that aid agencies have raced to help Vanuatu victims, so they're actually getting some help.
Yes, of course. Yeah. For these situations, quite often, organisations are ready to spring into action whenever something like this happens. And indeed, Cyclone Pam, let's remind you that it affected Vanuatu with winds of 165 miles per hour at its peak, passing Port Vila and the islands further south, significantly affecting them. And we're still continuing to slowly get the information of just how bad the storm has been. Last time I found out it was around 8 dead from the storm. I don't know whether that number is higher or not.
It's probably due to rise.
Well, yes, it probably is going to rise, but at the moment, that was the last official word I heard. Let me just try and find out. Let me see if I could find any more information about that whilst I'm looking right now. But obviously it was.
I'll find something for that, actually.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. But that's the current situation. We also need to remind ourselves what the warnings are in Guam and the other islands, the Northern Mariana Islands, for Tropical Storm Bavi. It has weakened. It is down to, what was it down to? 50 miles per hour. A tropical storm warning in effect for Guam, as well as, or was it still in effect for the islands? Yes, remaining in effect for Rota, Tinian, and Saipan. The typhoon watch that was in effect for all of those islands has been cancelled. The typhoon watch has been cancelled, which I guess is good news. The storm is not expected to be as strong as what we initially feared, but we could still be seeing tropical storm force winds in Guam and the rest of the Mariana Islands.
I believe Pam's shifted its what's the word? Its course.
Well, it's headed towards New Zealand. That's what I was going to show you next, actually, the rain forecast from New Zealand. You can see over the next few days, or few hours, actually, as it is now, how the storm's expected to keep towards the north. But you can see significant amounts of rainfall falling over the whole area, and you can also get a little gauge on what the wind speeds are going to be as well, according to that there. What are we looking at there? Around 40 knots perhaps along the north coast of New Zealand, maybe locally in some areas perhaps a little bit higher than 50 miles per hour. That's probably the region of wind speeds we're probably looking at along the north coast of New Zealand. Heavy rainfall, especially towards the northeast, that northeastern tip, I'm not sure of its name, but that's probably where we're going to see the heaviest rainfall, and perhaps an area slightly further south as well as it heads towards the storm heads well off towards the southeast. Minimum air pressure at that time will probably be in the 960s and increasing until it turns post-tropical and deepens once more.
Pam isn't expected to hit New Zealand head-on, is it?
No, Pam will not be striking New Zealand head-on, but it will be affecting the area as a transitioning cyclone, we should imagine, turning from tropical to post-tropical.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we're looking at with Pam right now. Wind speeds around 130 miles per hour at the last update, but preliminary information tells us that it may have gone down to around 110 at midnight UTC. That is unofficial information, but it may well become official by the time we get to 3 a.m. Or midnight Zulu rather, when the information comes out at 1 a.m. our time, which is in just an hour's time. But that's Cyclone Pam. Of course, Cyclone Nathan expected to intensify. Let's also take a look at the JTWC's track map for Tropical Storm Bavi at this time. Now, you may remember not so long ago we showed you a graphic that showed the storm possibly making landfall as a typhoon in the Philippines. It's been quite a U-turn on that, I suppose, with the storm passing what could be a landfall as a tropical storm in Guam, maybe at winds of 60 miles per hour, and then a almost due westward course all the way to Luzon, not too far from Manila, where it will be significantly weaker, just barely a tropical depression by then, but still, tropical depressions can deliver heavy rainfall and could, of course, adversely affect the region. So we'll keep our eyes on that one as the situation progresses, and we'll also keep eyes on Guam to see what happens there. But quite often Guam gets storms like this. I don't think it will be, well, it may be a bit of a situation, but we've seen much stronger storms affect Guam before, so hopefully Guam won't fare too badly. Daniel, I'm not sure if you know or not, but you are muted.
Girls.
Oh, now you're
Yes,
not.
I muted myself.
Yes. Okay. Anything you'd like to say about that?
Not really. But everything.
I've covered everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
As always.
I have an update.
Okay, Michael, go ahead.
Possibly the UN said that there were unconfirmed reports of 44 deaths in Vanuatu's northeastern islands after Pam veered from its expected track. However, the number is expected to rise significantly as reports come in from outlying area. Vanuatu has a population of around 267,000 spread over 83 islands and some 47,000 people living in Port Vila.
So is that 44 confirmed?
Unconfirmed.
Unconfirmed at this time, but well,
what's your source?
there's the UN that was. There's a number for you
right,
then. 44
Apparently,
unconfirmed reports that 44 people have been killed by Cyclone Pam in Vanuatu, and that number may well rise. Hopefully, not by much.
and also New Zealand has pledged 1 million New Zealand dollars, which is about £500,000, to help with relief efforts, while Australia said it's preparing to send a crisis response team if needed. There are destructive winds, rain, flooding, landslides, sea surge, and very rough seas, and the storm is exceedingly destructive there, said the Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop.
Yeah,
We stand ready to assist.
as they should, because I think Vanuatu, as it may become clear in the coming days, may need all the help it can get.
Yeah.
And also, apparently, Port Vila is considered to be the city most exposed to natural disasters in the world, as well as cyclones. It faces risks of earthquakes, tsunamis, and floods.
Yeah, it is a quite active area in terms of earthquakes as well, the South Pacific. Hello? Was
I
that
was just
you,
gonna
Nick?
say, yeah, I was just gonna say, geez,
Okay. In the meantime, yeah, I was just speaking about Vanuatu. Yeah, the whole South Pacific region can be susceptible to earthquakes. You don't usually see a monster earthquake similar to ones that you see in, well, we all know the ones in Japan, Indonesia, amongst other places. You don't really see earthquakes in that area, but there have been some in the past. I think there was one. I don't know whether it was Vanuatu or whether I think it was Samoa, wasn't it? Wasn't there a tsunami there a few years ago? And of course, along with that, all of these islands are very low lying. So you bring a storm surge to some of these islands, it could quite possibly engulf a whole island if it's low lying. If the peaks of the island are really low. I know the Maldives is a big example of that one, where I think the highest point of that whole island nation is just 2 meters above sea level. Luckily, it very rarely sees tropical cyclone activity, despite being in the Indian Ocean region. But yeah, that's just a little comparison there. If you have any comments for us or any questions that we can do our best to answer, if you're watching right now on the live chat on our YouTube page, then please do feel free to get in touch, and we'll do our best to respond.
And if you have any questions for me, do the same. Ask me directly, because I can't see them at the moment.
Don't worry, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm always here for my fans.
Just actually, what I forgot to do before I started the show was to post about it on our social media pages. So I'll do that now.
Nathan.
Yeah.
Looking on Wikipedia, apparently Tropical Cyclone Nathan from the outer bands of Cyclone Pam.
You sure about that?
Apparently. Shortly after Cyclone Pam was classified, the bands of Pam led to the formation of a tropical low near Australia on the 10th of March. Later that day, BOM designated the system as 17U and intensified to Tropical Cyclone Nathan several hours later.
I was just busy.
It would be funny if your mother's name was Pam.
Sorry, what was that?
It would be funny if your mother's name was Pam.
I guess.
Obviously, Nathan isn't as powerful as Pam.
Yeah, clearly. Stephen P. Shaw says on the less developed island, I'm not sure which one he's talking about, locals predominantly live in traditional thatched housing. I think they're speaking generally, actually. They would have been picked up like confetti by the winds, according to Ms. Morrison at World Vision Vanuatu. So yeah, we do know about the structural conditions of buildings on some of the islands in Vanuatu, and as far as we know, the construction of the buildings is not really, well, not at all built to withstand the Category 5 cyclone passing over with winds of 165 miles per hour, gusting to 200.
Well, if I showed a picture before of one of the houses being destroyed.
Yeah, there was indeed. So obviously you would expect carnage in some of those islands. So unfortunately, despite how tragic it is little surprise to see, to learn of what may be several dozen fatalities on Vanuatu, maybe even, and here's me speculating, but maybe even getting along towards 3 digits. In the meantime, the time here in the UK is 19 minutes past 12. It's 11:19 in Vanuatu. Let's recap what the current situation is in the tropics. There's Cyclone Pam. It's moving towards the southeast. On this image, you can see it best in relation to New Zealand. Already, the outer spiral band is beginning to affect the northernmost part of New Zealand's North Island. The central core of the storm still remains well offshore, still halfway between New Caledonia and New Zealand. But New Zealand itself could see some heavy rainfall and some gusts or sustained winds, maybe, of 50 miles per hour or higher in 24 hours. Not to mention heavy rainfall as well. I think I did mention that already. But the storm will stay north of New Zealand. It will be moving towards the southeast, running parallel to that northeastern coast of New Zealand, and then moving towards the southeast further, clearing the North Island. Southern part of New Zealand probably won't see too much from this cyclone, and then it will continue to move polewards and probably be an extratropical low pressure system headed towards South America in the next few days, I should imagine. We also have Cyclone Nathan. It's got winds of, wasn't it 45 miles per hour now? Did it weaken further? Can't even remember which one we were talking about now. But it is a fairly weak storm and has been for some time. It's been stalling near Australia for several days, as we all know, and is now moving towards the east slightly, and is expected to move towards the southeast in the next few days, and then possibly curve towards the west and maybe take another run up towards Australia or dissipate over the Coral Sea. We'll find out. And of course we have Tropical Storm Bavi, winds of 50 miles per hour at this time. The typhoon watch over the Mariana Islands has been cancelled, but tropical storm warnings remain in effect for all of those islands from Guam to Saipan. And I think they extend them further north as well. The only reason why I think they hold back sometimes, I don't even know if they do issue warnings for the islands further north, because many, if not all of them, are uninhabited.
Is there anything I should cover?
Sorry, what was that?
Is there anything I should cover?
I have no idea.
Bearing in mind I'm quite limited.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, Daniel. Nick, is there anything you'd like to say at this point? Oh, you're muted apparently. Michael?
Wait, what?
Michael?
Yeah.
What's going on there? Have you fallen asleep or something? Or have you just been listening intently?
Been listening.
Yeah.
I have nothing to cover.
Okay, just taking a look at Japan, what they say about Tropical Storm Bavi. You can see here Japan for the first time expecting the storm to go on and affect the Philippines.
Nathan.
Sorry?
The post has just come up on my Facebook feed.
Okay.
A medal.
What is it?
About like what we're doing now.
Oh yes, the one I did. But yes, Tropical Storm Bavi expected to go on, affecting Guam, of course, and the Mariana Islands, and a fairly weak storm, I think, by the time it reaches the Philippines. There's another version of the track map. So Guam may well see a landfall from Tropical Storm Bavi. In case you're intrigued to see what JTWC say of Pam right now, it's fairly straightforward. But you can see they're still expected to be of hurricane force winds by the time we get to its closest approach to New Zealand. Could still be with winds near the centre of 75 miles per hour. But you can see that's probably only going to be experienced in this central area here. Further out, you're probably not going to see so strong winds, but we could still see winds of 60 miles per hour or higher gusts as it heads towards the southeast, and then it will probably turn post-tropical by the time we reach the last dot. It may even still be tropical by the time it nears New Zealand. Then it will weaken slightly, and then it will probably deepen once it clears New Zealand as an extratropical low to maybe the 950s or 940s in air pressure. As it is right now, the air pressure is 937 millibars. That was the last check at 9 p.m. And its wind speed was 130 miles an hour, but unofficial information suggests that it's around 110 miles per hour now, which would make it a high-end Category 2. on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. I'd say it looks like one as well, to be honest, and on a rapid weakening trend at the moment.
Nathan,
Hmm.
I may need to go off because I need to get some sleep for tomorrow.
I see.
So I'll probably speak to you. I'll see you guys at some other point, okay?
Well, Michael, have a good
Okay.
evening. Thanks for being with us this evening, and thanks for your input.
Good night.
Appreciated as always. Good night.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Night night.
And that was Michael. So we're left with 3 now.
2 actually.
2? Oh well. We would show you some other imagery right now, but our usual
I'm not
screen
able.
sharers aren't with us at the moment, and Daniel is unable. But I'll try and get something up in just a quick moment. At the moment, I'm trying to find out some news information, to be quite honest, because it's quite difficult to maintain this stuff and keep everything running and make the whole thing interesting at the same time. We'll try and get some float imagery up of Cyclone Pam as well, but we'll do that shortly. Oh look, you're looking at me now. Just loading up the imagery loop of Cyclone Pam. Hey, it's just me talking now. Okay, here we are. So that's the latest on how the Cyclone Pam has been progressing, and you can actually see in those latest frames the eye appears to have collapsed, at least, if not somewhat, then completely in those last few frames. I suppose you could describe it as it being swept away towards New Zealand, but the storm still could provide a potent threat there to the northern part of New Zealand. Certainly better safe than sorry over there to prepare for the current storm, even though it is quite a somewhat rare event that a storm is still tropical by the time it reaches New Zealand, or should I say a very rare event. But either way, extratropical storms aren't quite as rare, but indeed we could still see some strong winds occurring along the northern coast of New Zealand, along with that heavy rainfall, especially in the east. Any questions for us, and we'll answer them. Daniel, you've got one.
Yeah. At what wind speed does a hurricane begin to develop an eye, roughly about?
Well, sometimes you see it in storms that aren't of hurricane force winds, sometimes
Yeah.
at around 65 miles per hour or so. You can sometimes see it, just a general number. But generally, you do see the eye really start to come out once it becomes hurricane force. So 75 miles per hour, 120 kilometers per hour, you start to see it then.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. That's interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
But
Seems to be quite random.
well, you can quite often tell. It's not always a rule to follow,
Yeah.
but quite often it is a good guide. You can sort of see how organised the eye is, and that quite often correlates with how strong the storm actually is as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm adding some more imagery here. There's the Earth map right now, showing the situation with Cyclone Pam and Cyclone Nathan. We did have it at least. It takes ages to load sometimes. Let's zoom in on Cyclone Pam. Already its influence affecting New Zealand, as we already saw. And it certainly looks ferocious. It's pretty to look at. Hey, I said pretty right next to each other. Pretty to look at, but of course still a very destructive cyclone towards the centre there. Winds saying 127 kilometers per hour maximum there, it says. I imagine it's still higher than that, to be quite honest with you. That is currently surface winds, probably higher the further up you go, at the 1000 millibar level. And further up, much stronger upper level winds as well, of 200 kilometers per hour. Looking at the ocean, where do we have the sea surface temperatures? That's not on that one. I think it's this one. Oh, I think that might just be a general surface temperature, but whole area around there, 26 degrees Celsius. Conditions in Vanuatu, by the way, still windy, I think, or maybe a little bit gusty here or there. You can see both Cyclone Nathan on your top left, still having a still with winds of around 45 miles per hour at this time, and likely to bounce back. We've been saying it for some time, even though it's been defying us the whole time, that it could re-intensify over the next few days and end up becoming a Category 1 cyclone, hurricane force winds in the next 2 days. So we'll keep our eye on Cyclone Nathan. And let's move further north right now and take a look at what's going on with Tropical Storm Bavi once more as well. Which one did I used to like looking at? This one looked quite nice because it's almost like replicating the clouds, almost, not quite. But you can see Cyclone Bavi. You saw the outline of Guam there. It's quite difficult to see against all the white outlines, but you can see Guam and the Mariana Islands further north. And the stronger winds will begin to affect those areas in around, I'd say, 12 to 24 hours time. Tropical storm watches, tropical storm warnings, rightly in effect for the whole island chain. There were typhoon watches in effect, but they have been cancelled because it seems fairly apparent now that that Tropical Storm Bavi will not become a typhoon, at least not until passing Guam, if at all. Daniel.
I've got nothing to say really.
Oh, excellent.
This is hard.
Okay, fine. We'll leave you once more with the image here of Cyclone Pam. And hey, who's that in the background? Daniel.
No, it's not me.
That's your brother in the background. We do apologise for the language that we can't control, if you did hear that. Let me just discuss what is currently going on this day then. It's not the only storm to have caused damage. Pam on March the 14th. Cyclone Indlala in 2007 made landfall in Madagascar as a Category 4 storm, killing 150 and causing $240 million in damages. On this day, though, we've entered March the 15th now in UTC, and on March the 15th, Cyclone Thomas in 2010 passed close to Fiji as a Category 4 storm also. That, unfortunately, caused 3 fatalities and $45 million in damages. Also on that day, Tropical Storm Roke in 2005 formed in the Western Pacific. Tropical Storm Cherono in 2011 formed in the Southwest Indian Ocean, and Cyclone Ingrid in 2005 made landfall in Western Australia, and that also killed 5 and caused $14 million in damages. So sadly, fatalities often happen in these areas when storms strike, but unfortunately for Vanuatu, Pam just happened to be one of the strongest storms, the second strongest storm ever in the South Pacific Ocean, on record, of course, to strike, well, at all, and never mind storms that made landfall or made a very close landfall, as the eye just passed within miles of the island Ifate, where Port Vila is situated on. And as far as we know, the UN unofficial reports from them, I believe, that there are 44 fatalities at this point, and it could be even higher.
Hurricanes require a sea temperature of 27 degrees, don't they, in order to form?
The general threshold is around 26 or 26.5, but storms sometimes can form with lower temperatures than that, but not very often.
So in theory, if the sea around the UK rose to that temperature, a hurricane could form near the UK?
Quite possibly, or if not form, then last long enough to strike the UK as a tropical entity indeed.
That'd be very scary.
Well, would it? It depends, I suppose, because we do get storms of our own. Of course, we've had storms that have had winds of over 100 miles per hour sometimes. Quite often
Being
with
a
tropical
storm,
systems, rainfall is a bigger effect than in an extratropical cyclone.
Yeah.
Nick, we,
being being a tropical storm, at least. I mean, like Category 5 hurricanes that cause fatalities.
indeed, Cyclone Pam passed close to Port Vila as a Category 5 storm with winds of 165 miles per hour. That's 265 kilometers per hour, and gusting to at least 200 miles per hour, possibly. That's 320 kilometers per hour as it passed close to Port Vila, and indeed the islands further south, which we also should mention because Port Vila, of course, being the capital, has higher construction standards in general. In other places, further south in particular, on those islands further south, the names escape me. One of them was Tanna, the other one was... I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm not going to say what it was. What was it called? Erromango, with a population of 2,000. Those two islands in particular may have really suffered from the storm. I don't think we've got any word out of those islands at this point. But as soon as we know, you'll know. We'll either post the information on our social pages. You can follow us, by the way, on Twitter. We're at Force13, and you can also like us on Facebook as well. Force 13 on there, all in text, not the number, all in text, Force 13. Find us on those platforms, and keep up to date. That's where we're posting all our updates, and of course on our YouTube channel, but quite often on YouTube we cover more towards the actual technicalities of where the storms are going and what intensity are expected to strike, rather than information about the human cost of the storm. That's more towards what we find on our social pages, and indeed on these live events as we scatter around for news during our broadcasts. Time in the UK is currently 36 minutes past 12 in the morning on March the 15th, 2015. The time in Vanuatu is 11:37 a.m. And in Guam and Australia, I expected about 2 hours earlier, I think. But you're looking right now, if you've just joined us, at the latest floater imagery of Cyclone Pam, which is moving towards the southeast, towards New Zealand. Let me get a better image for you, which shows New Zealand on the map. This is a recent visible image of Cyclone Pam as it's been traveling towards the southeast at a fair pace. And you can already see the bands towards the south of the storm already beginning to at least cover New Zealand, and that leading edge as well. You can see towards the bottom of your screen there, this band round here appears to have already reached Wellington, but not too much going on in that. It's just the precursor, I suppose. It's I guess a little bit of a warning that something is on its way. And on New Zealand radar, heavy rain is beginning to fall in the northernmost parts of New Zealand's North Island right now, which is consistent with what we're seeing on the map here under those heavy cloud masses. But the center of the storm still remains several hundred miles out to sea, shown here. The center of the storm around here. The eye has disintegrated by the looks of things in the past few frames, as you saw on that floater imagery not so long ago. Let's have a little close-up on the center of the storm in the latest frame. You can see where the eye was around here, and the left-hand side of the storm is looking a little bit flaky now as well by the looks of things there. I don't know whether we can confirm that on the floater imagery if we look more closely towards the left-hand side of the storm. Do we still have it up? There it is. Yeah, not too much going. A bit of a gap appearing in that frame there. The latest frames on the western side of the storm. Eastern side still remaining fairly strong, especially in the central core towards the northern part. But the central core of the storm should remain offshore New Zealand towards the north by several tens of miles at least. Daniel? You still with us? Perhaps not. But unofficial information from us that Cyclone Pam is down to 110 miles per hour. It may even be down further than that by the time we get to the update at 1 a.m., which is when we'll be going off air. But maybe we'll stay online just for a few more minutes to see whether the update does come in whilst we're on the air. If you have a question for us, by the way, you can send it in through our comments section or on our social media pages whilst you're watching this. And we're also looking to recruit weather watchers as well. If you'd like to come online at some point on one of our hangouts, you're more than welcome to. If you'd like to discuss conditions in your area or to talk about past storms whenever we have a quiet period in the storm tracking situation, I suppose. As we speak, though, not quite as active as it was a few days ago, but we still have a real situation on our hands. Of course, we're still cleaning up after Cyclone Pam struck Vanuatu. Indeed, every Vanuatuan person is at this point. And I'm not sure what the effects were on New Caledonia. I expect that it wasn't too severe there. I suppose gusts, I think gusts reached, or sustained winds on the easternmost Loyalty Islands reached around 60 miles per hour. The wind speed sustained and maybe higher gusts than that, and some heavy rainfall occurred, but I don't think conditions were too serious, at least on New Caledonia. It's all in Vanuatu as far as we know. And I'm just actually looking through some of the comments because I've fallen behind a little bit now. Earthspace says, I've assembled a lot of live cams from North Island on their website. I've seen that website before as well, because they had the Vanuatu webcams on, but by the time I looked at it, all the webcams have gone down. So I couldn't actually see any, but I had the source from some of those webcams that they posted, where you could see all the current conditions of Vanuatu. It didn't actually show very much until they went down. You couldn't really see much of what was going on. Obviously, it probably didn't take much before the communications went down in Vanuatu, probably before the height of the storm as well. So obviously a lot would have happened since the blackout, and we're still only just beginning to get the full picture of what actually went on in Vanuatu. According to Michael, what he said earlier, it is unconfirmed that the UN said that apparently there were 44 unconfirmed fatalities at this point, and that wouldn't be a surprising number at all. Obviously, with the intensity of the storm and with the preparedness of people on those islands, I'm not saying they weren't prepared, but buildings, the building standards in some areas of Vanuatu, we believe aren't very good, especially when faced with a Category 5 cyclone on both the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale and the Australian scale, with winds of over 250 kilometers per hour.
Hello.
Yes. Daniel, hello.
Daft because the app crashed.
Oh, I see.
In case you're wondering where I went for 10 seconds.
No, I didn't actually.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Nice to know I'm missed.
Sorry?
Nice to know I'm missed.
Yes, indeed. We're just kidding. But yes, I'll try and find some more information whilst I'm on air, but it's quite difficult to do that whilst you're trying to tell people what's going on at the same time as well. So if you've just joined us, a recap of the current situation. Cyclone Pam, winds of 130 miles per hour officially. That was as of a few hours ago. We believe it's gone down to around 110. It wouldn't surprise us at this point, because to me it looks like a Category 2 storm. Or a low-end Cat 3 perhaps at a push. Cyclone Nathan is a fairly weak storm. It's been stalling near Australia for several days with winds of 45 miles per hour as far as we know, possibly 50, or maybe intensifying to 50 at our next update. We'll find out. A Category 1 on the Australian scale nonetheless, and no warnings in effect for Australia at this time. Storm likely to move towards the southeast and become a Category 2 storm on the Australian scale in the next 3 days. Before either stalling out at sea and dissipating, or perhaps moving back towards Australia in the next few days. Also, Cyclone, that's Cyclone Nathan there, Tropical Storm Bavi as well. There's the image from the Navy showing how the storm isn't too far from Guam at this point. We'll actually I'll actually try and find the Guam radar image for you as well to see whether we can see the storm approaching, and I think we actually can. I'll just load that up to you when I've got it ready. Here we are. Yeah, you can see a little bit approaching on Guam right now. From the Anderson Air Force Base radar station. That appears to be the edge of the storm appearing on the screen on your right hand side, and we'll track that over the next few hours as the storm draws ever nearer. The cloud cover, of course, already covering the whole area. Wind speeds on that around 50 miles per hour. Typhoon watches were cancelled over the whole Mariana Islands, but tropical storm watches are in effect for Guam, extending as far as Saipan. But there we are.
Once again, I'm sorry I can't show any
Fine.
content.
Okay, don't be sorry. In
It's okay,
in 2015, we've seen 18 tropical storms form since January 1st, of course, which is fairly average, I believe, for this time of year, or maybe ever so slightly below. I'm not entirely sure, but it may be slightly above, actually. 9 of those have become Category 1 hurricanes on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, and 6 have gone on to become Category 3 storms. And as you know, 3 of those have become Category 5 cyclones with winds of 160 miles per hour on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. Taking a look, just looking down at all your comments once more, whether any are in reference to ourselves. Just general chit-chat by the looks of things. The Australian region, of course, has been below average in terms of cyclones in this season, the 2014-15 season, but as they say, it only takes one. It hasn't arrived in Australia this year, it's arrived in Vanuatu. Though Cyclone Olwyn certainly caused a little bit of carnage. We saw pictures of a light aircraft that was parked in a place that it shouldn't have been. I think that was near Carnarvon, but it might have been somewhere else in that region in Western Australia when Cyclone Olwyn peaked as a Category 2 storm, Category 3 on the Australian scale, before making its second landfall along the western coast of Australia.
Although Marcia was actually pretty strong too.
Of course, I forgot Marcia.
Oh yeah.
Duh, Marcia, of course, yes, made landfall as a Category 4. Weak category, well, I shouldn't say weak, low-end Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale with winds of 130 miles per hour. That was a strong storm that affected the area north of Rockhampton.
What about Lamb? Was that a powerful storm? No.
Lamb was fairly strong as well. The thing is, with those two storms, they made landfall on areas that weren't particularly populated. I know
Yeah.
Cyclone Marcia moved inland and affected Rockhampton and beyond. But where it made landfall, it wasn't a particularly populated place. And the landfall area always gets it the worst, of course. The thing is, with Cyclone Pam, what sets it apart from all of the others, really, is that it passed Port Vila, small islands that it was passing by. So it didn't really affect the storm's intensity. Indeed, it reached its peak air pressure, according to Fiji at least, after it had passed the Vanuatu Islands, when it reached its low pressure of 896 millibars, the second strongest storm ever in the Pacific, in the South Pacific Ocean, behind Zoe in 2002, which peaked at 890 millibars. And if you go by wind speed from Fiji, Pam was actually the stronger in that regard.
All right.
So certainly one of the strongest storms we've ever seen in the South Pacific, and the 4th strongest ever in the Southern Hemisphere. In the whole Southern Hemisphere, the 4th strongest, and I think it ranks in the 30s in terms of strongest storm ever worldwide, 30s or 40s. So I suppose, sad as it is little wonder to see so much carnage emerging from Vanuatu, and of course the human cost of the storm as well, which we believe the fatality count is getting towards 50 perhaps higher.
Nick, have you got anything to add?
Probably not.
I'm
No.
playing a game. I'm watching cars in a game. Well, they aren't really
okay.
cars. They're genetically engineered cars. They're genetically modified. They're not genetically engineered.
Okay.
Genetic algorithm cars, and I'm trying to see which one's getting
Right.
the best and like how they're evolving over time. I don't
Excellent stuff, Nick. Maybe we'll talk about that at a future show. Obviously, we must concentrate on all the tropical activity as it happens at this point because it is
Yes.
a serious situation in Vanuatu.
Yes.
But we could discuss that at another time in a late day. Also, we have game shows that we do quite often here on 413 as well. If you'd like to enter, do let us know. But
Prepare to be beaten.
now's not the time to discuss that at length.
Yeah.
Luke says, oh, was it Luke? Yeah, Luke says, who wants to be in a cyclone?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Nathan.
Well, that's what Martinez Julian said. No one, all of us wants to live. Yeah, indeed. Well, you know, I guess it's all well and good being in a cyclone as long as it doesn't damage your house and as long as you stay safe. But obviously, it's not ideal for anyone to have a cyclone, certainly of this magnitude and size and strength affecting your area as well. Sometimes cyclones can be beneficial. They can deliver healthy amounts of rainfall to areas affected by droughts, but quite often you want something that's weak to deliver that, and it's happened before.
Yeah.
And indeed, Jason, one of our other presenters slash screen sharers, showed us, spoke to us the other day about where he lives in Perth, that the rainfall from Olwyn is viewed as beneficial. Pardon me. So yes. But yes, independent television says Cyclone Pam could be the South Pacific version of Hurricane Katrina. Well, Katrina was a unique storm in many ways. The areas that it affected certainly contributed significantly to the amount of damage that we saw. The flooding was the main thing. 80% of levees broke in New Orleans. We were speaking to someone from New Orleans not so long ago in one of our live events about the ordeal with Hurricane Katrina. 80% of the city was flooded, I think. And of course, it caused over 1,000 fatalities, not only with its very strong winds, but with its insane storm surge and with its associated flooding as well.
Nick,
Yes.
did you have something to add?
Nope.
Okay.
I could talk about the cars that I'm seeing, but
I'd just like to say hello to the, I don't know whether it's Di or Di or but the Di Gamer 123 lives in Brazil, talking about I don't know whether they have anything to say about their experiences, perhaps with Cyclone Carrie, which happened not so long ago. We had it was quite a significant year in the South Atlantic this season. In 2014 and 15, we had 2 named storms, which I think is a first. So it's certainly been a very active period in the tropics in the past week. Tropical Storm Carrie, which formed last week, we were covering that one on live updates as well. As it happened with our Brazilian friend Pablo, who couldn't make it this evening. We were speaking with him about that as well. He was certainly well on top of that storm. It affected his area with some rainfall, I think, but not anything significant. But Cyclone Pam certainly is. The time here in the UK is 5 to 1. Time in Vanuatu 5:12, 11:55 a.m. local time on March the 15th over there. Where, of course, it's another day of recovery from Cyclone Pam, which is now leaving the area. As for New Zealand, it's a day of preparation, and being alert to the danger of what Cyclone Pam could bring as it heads towards New Zealand, where it could affect the area with winds of 60 miles per hour plus as it affects the North Island. You can see just about the northernmost section of it there being affected by the storm. There's a zoomed out map showing the storm already beginning to affect northern parts of New Zealand. Our next live update, by the way, will probably be, if I can get my words out, will probably be sometime in the afternoon of March the 15th. That's UTC, so we're probably looking at late evening local time in this area in the South Pacific, probably towards midnight, hopefully not too much later than that, obviously for convenience for people watching in those areas where it matters the most. So do tune in for that as well. We'll have a definitive time put on our social pages at some point, and also on the Force 13 website. If you've just joined us and would like to keep in the loop when we're not on air, which will be in 5 minutes' time, you can follow us on Twitter at Force 13, all in text at Force 13, or on Facebook, same thing, Force 13 on Facebook. And of course, stay tuned with us on YouTube and subscribe, and we'll be doing regular live updates whenever they're necessary, and also the recorded updates that we've been known to do in the past 2 years or so. Daniel, any closing remarks, any news you may have found whilst we've been yabbering on?
No, really. I just nearly fell asleep then.
Oh, have I been boring you so much?
No, it's not you. It's just me.
Right.
I'm tired.
Yeah, indeed. Lucas Chan says, do toilets flush clockwise over in the southern hemisphere? Now,
No, they don't.
Okay. Fine. Nick answered the question.
No, you can continue.
I
What
thought
about
they did.
sinks?
No.
I thought anything water-based did, but I'm sure someone will confirm that for us. I've never actually, I've never been in the southern hemisphere to observe, so
I've never been either, so.
maybe we'll get.
And I've
I'll
just
ask
heard
Jason.
that it doesn't.
I'll ask Jason on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just do a quick recap for anyone who has just started watching us in the last few minutes, just to tell you what the current situation is with all the storms before we finish up on air here. So, Cyclone Pam, still active, still a strong storm, a Category 3, or Category 4 rather, last we knew, on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale with winds of 130 miles per hour. Unofficial news at midnight is that the storm may have weakened now to 110 miles per hour, certainly weakened somewhat. I wonder whether the official information has come in yet from Ramba at all. Not yet. But that's the current situation with Pam. Either way, it's still going to be a significant severe weather event for the northern part of New Zealand as the storm makes a close approach to northern New Zealand. Also, Cyclone Nathan, a weak storm it remains. 45 miles per hour, headed towards the east, Category 1 on the Australian scale, and likely to curve towards the south over the Coral Sea. Could quite possibly dissipate in that general area in around 5 days' time. It seems to have been going on forever, that storm. And also Tropical Storm Bavi, which is approaching the Mariana Islands at this time. Typhoon watches have been cancelled. Tropical storm watches are in effect for all of the Mariana Islands, extending from Guam to Saipan. And there's the latest radar imagery showing the storm beginning to appear, and it will probably strike Saipan or Tinian first, I would imagine. Or maybe head towards Rota first. We'll see. We'll get a definitive picture, I'm sure, at a later date. No warnings in effect in relation to Cyclone Nathan. And, of course, New Zealand has severe weather warnings in effect, I'm guessing, for the whole northern part of the area. There's confirmation of what's going on with the warnings in the Mariana Islands right now as well. But that's the situation we have with us right now. Cyclone Alwyn, of course, no longer with us. That's probably long gone now off the southern coast of Australia. And we'll be looking very soon to see what our next storm will be to form around the world. But that's not for this evening. We'll probably cover that in our next live update, which I imagine will be early afternoon, Universal Time, which will be late evening in the Pacific. That's all from us for now. I was Nathan Foy, and we were Force 13 Live. Daniel, would you like to finish up?
Yeah. Good night.
Oh, that was quick.
Good morning, wherever you
Yeah,
are.
good morning, good night, good evening for our friends in America.
And I'm going to say this because I'm just going to copy Jake Roper. It's not goodbye. It's see you later.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay.
And that's all from me, and we'll be back another time. Thanks for watching. Stay up to date on our social pages. You can ask me a question at any time throughout private messaging, or you can add me on Skype as well. Fool13 is my name, the number 13. Fool13, you can add me on there if you'd like.
You can
to
even
speak
ask
to
me.
Or you can even ask Nick.
Or for the chat room as well.
Yeah, we have a chat room on there as well. But anyway, ask and you shall receive. That's all from us for now, and we'll be back soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Au revoir.
Good night.